Well, do you want to tell people more about what it is that you're up to?
Yeah, I should for sure. Yeah, I mean, first off, it's cool to be here. I've actually never been on a podcast, so yeah, this is
We
pretty cool.
good. I'm glad.
But I'm an online fitness coach. I basically teach like combining strength training with like aerobic training, so running and cycling and triathlon as well. And yeah, like I normally take clients on for like a period of 2 to 3 months, and we sort of get them very sort of how can I say, I guess, yeah, building their muscular base alongside their aerobic base so they can really sort of test themselves in like marathons, triathlons, ultra marathons. And yeah, I'm actually sort of quite new to it though. Like I'm still kind of leaving like the 9 to 5 world behind to pursue something full time, which has been probably like the hardest thing I've ever done, to be honest, like really going out on my own.
Mm.
But yeah, and I mean, I do health and fitness because it's been one of the greatest pillars in my life for many, many years. And I think I'm at a point now where I can sort of give my experience to other people and sort of, yeah, better their life in that way as well. So yeah, that's
How
where
old are
I'm at
you?
right now. I'm 24.
Okay,
24.
you're 24. Nice. Cool, cool. So, how long were you working in the what were you doing with regards to like a 9 to 5? Because I saw one of your videos. It was something. It had the word corporate in it, and it was like a log of of what you did in the day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's all. That's it from it.
Yeah.
What I can remember.
Yeah, fair enough. I was probably about almost 2 years. I was working at a corporate consulting firm. And before that, I'd sort of had a few different jobs and went to uni, did a Bachelor of Science at uni, and yeah, kind of realized now that I don't really want to be there, like many people do, I think. But so yeah, I'm trying to figure that out as well because I think I probably was quite confused there for many, many years. I mean, not just in the corporate world, but just in general, not really knowing where I should go, what I should do. So I just kind of took jobs, didn't really know too much about them. Um, and yeah, found myself really struggling, mainly to understand and have relationships with people in these workplaces who were a lot older than me, who really struggled to communicate well, and also to just work for things that I didn't really believe in. I think was probably the biggest thing. Um, so,
What do you mean by
oh
that?
yeah,
What didn't you believe in?
um,
Like ethics,
I mean, I guess,
morals.
yeah. I mean, I did a lot of work in like business consulting and in tax, and just the way that like the whole system works is like the fact that we sort of offer a service to, I guess, like a client who is, another big company, like someone like, Microsoft, Google, someone like that. And the work that we do is just so, I don't know, just so almost like kind of pointless in some sense. It's something that I just thought, like, what am I kind of doing here kind of thing? And massive contracts go into these things. So much money is poured into these contracts, like teams of hundreds of people are brought in for like long-term like tech transformations, as they like to call them. And I sort of found myself sitting there being like, I don't really, like, I'm not really contributing to this. Like there's nothing, I feel like I'm not even really making any kind of a difference here because it was just sort of the same thing every single day. Like you couldn't really see like a tangible outcome. And, some people love it, man. Like some people love the corporate game and I just didn't. I think I have had like maybe a worse off experience. I think I've sort of dealt with a lot of bad management
Mm-hmm.
that I struggled with, but yeah, it just isn't really for me, I think. And I also really kind of came to a point in the end where I struggled to like, I really didn't like being told what to do. And a lot of the time it didn't make sense either. So that's, yeah, a couple of things that I dealt with, but yeah, I mean, it was a good learning experience, but
Yes, no, it is interesting. Just as you were talking, I was thinking there seems to be this thing with jobs where the majority of jobs that people perceive to be meaningful and worthwhile often
mm,
don't pay as well as some of these sort of mundane jobs. You look at something like, if you look at something like data analyst, which is obviously is going to be a massive thing as we sort of grow up, because I just turned 25 yesterday. So we're the same age.
okay. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah. These like data analysis and things like that, which are just going to grow as we move down this sort of path of AI and technology and surveillance and the sort of conglomerateization of our world as we know it. And these are the jobs that pay so well. And yet there's so many people out there. I can imagine I've seen a couple of comments and things on social media that are like, I we fetishize these types of jobs. But actually there are people who are going, I really miss my job where I used to work in a cafe because I felt better doing it, but I can't go back to it anymore. I couldn't consider going back to it because I've become accustomed to the amount of money that I make now. I'm sort of stuck in this. We have the term in like England and stuff, and not really England, but I suppose in America, like the rat race. I'm like stuck in the corporate rat race, and so many people, and it's I'm not sure what's it like in Germany. What is the state for young people? I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I like fully agree with what you're saying. And the thing is, I'm in Germany at the moment, and I am German, but I actually grew up in Australia.
That makes
That's why my
sense.
accent is.
I just want to put that out there. I literally was going to ask you. I was going, it doesn't sound German, and you obviously can speak very, very good English. So I thought you might have been Australian or something. I was like, okay, cool, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, carry on.
yeah. No, So yeah, I actually transferred to. I live in Munich, and I transferred to Munich with I guess the corporate consulting firm that I was at in Australia. And I really find here in Germany in particular, more so than in Australia, a lot of other young people that I've met, they feel the same way. Like they really struggle to sort of fit in to like the system and to be told what to do and have to do all these things, with processes and methods that have been in place for 20, 30 years and be, barked at by like seniors who have just been there for 30 years and have just climbed their way up the ladder because they knew people. I know that's not always the case, but you know, everyone's experience is different, but it's a very like uncomfortable place because you're kind of on your own. And when you're getting yelled at like a meeting on like a Friday night, like I've been on so many meetings that have gone like past 6, 7 o'clock on a Friday night. And I've just been like, what am I even doing? Like, why am I actually doing this? I don't even know. So that was one of my biggest realizations actually coming to Germany, because I thought maybe I'll try something else. I'll go to Europe. I'll have a different experience, but it's actually been like probably one of the most challenging experiences of my whole life, if not the most challenging, because I was so like overwhelmed and stressed and alone trying to figure this whole thing out. And yeah, I think the corporate world is a struggling place for a lot of young people. I think a lot of young people don't really belong, or they might not feel like they belong. Like even where I work, I won't mention the company name, but where I work, like the average, like I guess tenure for a junior consultant is 1.5 years. And like the people who leave the company the most are young people like me who have only been there for 1.5 years. Like it's their first job out of uni, and then they basically realize that it's not for them, and then they go. And yeah, so I think a lot of young people find themselves in that struggle for sure.
What actually, because I'm naive to the topic. I understand what what the term consultant is, but because what I've heard of a couple of people around my age that do consultancy, and I sort of think, surely in order to be a consultant, you have to be like an expert in a field and have done something for years and years. How have we created a place? Maybe that's part of the reason why so many young people feel sort of disenfranchised with consultancy, because I imagine that consultancy is a very passive thing. I mean, I don't know. So just explain what actually you were doing as a business consultant.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, see, that in itself is like it's so true, because exactly. So like I studied like natural science at uni. So I did like chemistry and physics. And then as I said before, I just sort of applied and I got into this company, and I was doing business consulting, right? And now here in Germany, I'm doing tax, and two things I've never done in my whole life in any capacity. And I'm sort of, yeah, like you don't really consult. particularly at junior levels, you just sort of are part of like a system that kind of just keeps ticking over because it always has in some senses. Like it's like, I don't really feel like in the past years, I've really been able to individually contribute to anything because I don't have any knowledge in business consulting or tax. And I've just sort of been told like what to do and I've done it. And then I've probably been like scrutinized for it or criticized for it in some way. But yeah, it's funny that you asked that because like it's actually a bit of an inside joke. Like no one really knows what consulting is. Like it's kind of funny. Like if you go to people who work at, yeah, I mean, in these corporate firms and you'll say to them like, yeah, like what do you actually do? Like what actually is a consultant? They'll be like, yeah, I actually don't even really know. I've just sort of get tasks given to me on a daily basis and I try my best to do them. And yeah, it's actually so funny that you say that because I honestly, I'm not a consultant. I literally have just been trying to figure it out for the last 2 years. So
You're Yeah, no, that makes sense. You're kind of, it sounds like you're just like a cog in a wheel, and they just they look for people straight out of uni because they're young and naive, and they think we'll just get these people because they're young, they're young, they're hungry, they want a bit of status, and we can just put them doing something that we just need these things doing, and they benefit because they're moving up the they're in theory granted the possibility of moving up the hierarchy, and we benefit because we can just sort of sit back and do what it is that we do, and I guess cream off the top. So because it's just weird because consulting is something I think you would do after you've like systematized over years and years how to do it, and you're retired. I had associated with someone who's semi-retired and is going back into the field to help other people, but like young people should be like getting tangible. I think the way to go forward I've spoken to a couple of people who this girl who trained as an accountant, and she works, I think it's called Deloitte's, which is a big accounting.
yeah, see, I'm at a similar firm. Like there's four. It's like they're called the Big Four, and I'm at a one that's on the same.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah. So, and look, you can't knock that because in this modern world, like men need status more than ever because they're getting shunned out in every which way they can. So like there's huge benefits. I met a girl who was like, oh yeah, I'm dating this guy. And I was like, oh yeah, what does he do? I was like, oh, he works for one of the big four companies. I'm like, what do you mean the big four companies? And like, oh, the big three, maybe she said, or something, maybe anyway. But but then, that was a bit of a random digression, but it's a complicated thing because status is something that if you don't have in your life, you'll suffer, not so well, actually, yes, sometimes suffer in certain ways. And being able to say that, whatever you end up doing, having that on your resume is going to be beneficial. So why do you think, what do you mean when you say that you felt like this transitional period was more difficult for people in Germany than it was in Australia? What's going on in Australia that is it just a more relaxed environment, or is it because everyone's just like putting some shrimp on the barbie?
Honestly, maybe. I think about this every day, man. Like I've been in Germany for almost 6 months now, and
That's not very long, is it?
and it's not very long, right? But so the thing is, I lived in Germany for a bit when I was younger, and then I moved to Australia. So I've sort of got the German culture, I guess. But
Yeah.
coming back as like an adult has been like really kind of eye-opening because it hasn't really been what I thought it would be. It's been quite different to, I mean, even the UK, to be honest. I just find that there are a lot of processes and systems in place for absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. Like you have to follow so many rules just to live. And I really like things that like just the simplest things. You have to like pay taxes on. Like you have, like if you're a Catholic, you have to pay tax. You have to pay like a specific, I guess, amount of euros every single month to the Catholic Church in Germany.
Okay.
And it's like, and it's sort of living in like such like a system, as I guess like systematic society has been probably like another thing that I've really struggled with because I've
Yes.
kind of realized that I don't really want to be a part of these old systems anymore. and I sort of want to try, I guess, like new things. And so that has been kind of like the cream on top. Like I've already been at this consulting firm that's made my life hard, but then I've gone outside and even like just to hang out with people outside, like, or just to live my normal life outside of work, I sort of then have to jump through all these hoops again. And it's, yeah, it's just been, in some senses, I do think I needed like this kind of challenge there, because I always like thought that I would like leave Australia and sort of travel a bit and do this and that. And I've learned like heaps, but it's definitely been like very, very challenging to fit in, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, Germany is stereotypically an incredibly systematic and like perfectly appointed. They do everything to the perfect degree, and they're obsessed with detail, and that's sort of been like the stereotype. That's the stereotype that we get in the UK, at least, and that's kind of the opposite of what people think of Australia. So I can imagine there's been like a complete and utter paradigm. You've had to go through a paradigm shift when you've moved from one place to the other. And then the other thing that strikes me is you seem sort of like a very sort of kind, mild-mannered person, and it is unfortunate, but it is true that these corporate industries and companies, they're pretty cutthroat and they're pretty ruthless, and I know it's such a stereotype that sort of narcissistic people are successful, but there's absolutely some truth to it.
Sure.
Because, yeah, the Machiavellian way of being in like a business sense is just rife, and it's so common. And yeah, I mean, how have you watched, have you witnessed sort of, what's it like working in a big corporate company like that? What are the people like? What are the commonalities? Yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. I mean, I think people will always say that it depends on departments, like for example, tax, finance, business consulting, tech, all these different sort of things that the firm does. But I think all in all, there is like a huge sense of stress that everyone carries, because for some reason, everyone has these like incredible deadlines that they have to meet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like their life is going to end if they don't meet them, even though it's not. And so you have people putting in like incredible hours every single day, not getting paid for them, like just to finish work that is probably just going to be looked at by, you know, someone on the other end, and like just to like kind of tick a box. Like it's not even, sometimes it's not even that important, and people have spent like 60 hours a week doing it. And yeah, I definitely think the narcissist is definitely a kind of human that thrives in a place like that, because they really just use people, to be honest. Like
They do, yeah.
even some of the experiences I've had. Yeah. And like, yeah, it's just incredible sometimes to think that like you have these massive companies who from the outside, you know, they look all kind of shiny and they look like they've got it figured out, but then you go inside and you see how broken and how bad it actually is, and how like, I wouldn't say inhumane, but how like, I did not think that this like these companies would be the way that they are before I like started working there. And it's just been like the biggest shock to me to see how people actually treat other people just because they want to be promoted. It's actually unbelievable. Like it's a zoo, man. It's like it's free for all. No one gives a shit about anyone. Sorry, no one cares about anyone.
Right. Yeah.
No one cares about anyone.
The animal kingdom, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's brutal. There was a famous philosopher called Hobbes, and his assertion was that man in the state of nature is short, brutal, and I don't know, deadly or something. And then there was another guy called Rousseau who said, so Hobbes believed that it was mankind that all the root of our problems in society were the people of society, not society itself, not the structures. And then this guy Rousseau believed it was the opposite. He believed that it was society, the structures and the limits that society put on people, what caused them to do bad things. So it wasn't the people's fault, it was society's fault. And I think the correct answer is probably to say that they're both true. I don't know if I explained that very well. You can You know,
Oh, you did.
okay, good. And I've always been. I'm probably more Hobbesian. I do think that people are inherently pretty brutal, and like I'm writing a blog post at the moment about there's this new show on Netflix called Monsters. I don't know if you've seen it. You look a bit like one of the brothers, actually. This where it's true stories. They did one on Jeffrey Dahmer, and now they're doing one on these two brothers, Eric and Lyle Menendez or something, who spoiler, who they killed their parents, and they were basically basking in the glory and the money that they had taken from them. It's a bit more complicated than that. They were very awful to them, etc., etc. But the point is, the blog post is about why, as people, we're obsessed with sort of psychopathic and sociopathic behavior, and it's because it's just in all of us. Fundamentally, it's a part of who we are as people, and we spend our entire lives contending with that in different ways. And yeah, so when you said, how were you expecting it to be? Because you said you were shocked by the way it actually was.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a fair point. I didn't really know, to be honest. I just know that I haven't had the experience I've had here anywhere else. And I haven't been able to compare it to anything apart from, like, I don't know, like corporate shows on Netflix where it's literally like about, like Suits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so, like, yeah, it's just, I think you're so right, man. Like when you say that people are inherently kind of worried about themselves as like the primary thing, that like they're brutal, they're relentless. And I mean, even you and I are probably like that. Maybe we just haven't found that side, like outside of ourselves, or we haven't had to be like that. But like, yeah, like even it's just been like from one day to the next, people switch up on you so quickly because I don't know, you do something that you don't even understand is wrong, but because they just are like these such like specific kinds of people. They are like they're perfectionists. They're narcissistic. They absolutely take advantage of anyone they can take advantage over. I just, what I actually think is like a massive thing. I actually have a YouTube channel where I sort of sometimes upload like little clips to, and
Nice.
I think one of the biggest things that I really find is that the older generation, nothing against them at all, but I just think that there's like a fundamental lack of good leadership towards the younger generation in sort of these big workplaces that have been operating for decades, that have been using the same processes for decades and just years and years and years. And there isn't really like a good sense of nurture for retaining people for decades again. Like I don't know anyone, none of my friends, like I'm 24, none of my friends have worked at the same place since they were 18. Everyone switches, everyone moves, everyone leaves at some point because they just have enough of the people. And you might have heard of this guy, but it's maybe Simon Sinek. I'm not sure if he's a psychologist. Yeah. And there's a couple of TED Talks where he speaks to this, how young people really struggle in modern corporate workplaces because of the total lack of good leadership. I think that really like resonates with me a lot because I've actually fully had that experience. It's actually crazy. Like I remember when I watched this one video when I was probably 18, and I was like, whatever. What I didn't really understand at the time, but now I sit here and I'm like, I actually can't believe how real every word that he said in that video was, because it's so true. Like people go, they go to university, they're smart, they're clever young kids, and then they go out into these companies who just make them feel like they're so stupid, and they really just make them feel like they're like, worthless, like they really aren't doing a good job. But then the thing is, the senior management then does not have the actual skills to communicate that properly to that young person, right? And then the young person thinks that it's all their fault, even though the young person is trying to manage someone who is like 30 years older than them. They're trying to actually do the work. They're trying to understand the task that they actually got given because they probably didn't even get told what to do in an efficient way. I mean, the amount of times that I've been asked to do something and then I've actually asked like a senior for help, and they said to me, that I was not allowed to ask for help because I have done it before. Like,
Nice.
it's just crazy, man. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I've never ever done this in my life, and I can't even ask for help. So